Hello, everyone. Of course, that could be no one. If you join in, let me know, 1, that you're here, 2, that you can hear me, 3, that you can see me. I'll give it a few minutes before I get really started into what we're going to do for today. I'm going to wait until about, we'll say, certainly no later than 7:05. So if you, in fact, I will wait 5 minutes. If you are watching this recorded, you can go ahead and skip to 7:05. Or 5 minutes in, I should say. 5 minutes in. And that's when I'll actually start. I'm just going to give 5 minutes for anybody online to show up. I see Andre is there. Hello, Andre. I hope you're doing well. I hope your shin is improving. And hello, Pascal Zero from Toronto, Canada. Oh boy, already feeling autumn up there. That's good to hear, Andre. I'm glad today was better than yesterday. I've gotten, over the years, I've developed a pretty keen eye for when people are hurting and trying not to tell anyone that they're hurting. What kind of weather's up there in Toronto, Canada, Pascal? You're welcome, Andre. I try to look out for all my students, the ones in class and even the ones that are virtual. Mild weather. Well, that's good. It's about the same here. It was, we're starting to feel, down here in the South Carolina, we're starting to feel a little bit of autumn creep in. It's not cold, but it's not blistering hot like it was 3 weeks ago. Oh my God. everybody moves to South Carolina or Florida or Georgia, and they worry about July, and I keep telling them, don't worry about July, worry about August. God, August is the worst. So I'm going to give it one more minute, 7:04, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, actually, my clock says 7:05, so I'm going to start right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friday's Foo. I hope you're having a good day. So, for the past couple of days, I've been wondering what my topic was going to be, and I had all kinds of thoughts in my head. And so I asked some people just in general, or I asked in particular one of my students, Andre, who's online right now in the chat, did he have any questions? And within 5 minutes, he shoots me this tome. It's a huge document on email. And I decided to just go with the first grouping. It's literally grouped. Histories, techniques, blah, blah, blah. Months and months worth of Friday's Foo in there. But the first one is Histories. And for a long time, I've been debating whether I wanted to talk about this on Friday's Foo. And I decided, what the heck, I might as well get it over with. And the reason I say that is, without question, something I say tonight will be controversial. That is, somebody somewhere will not like what I have to say. With that said, let me give this that caveat, and let me offer this. If what I say upsets your apple cart, the thing that you're fixed on that makes you do martial arts, just throw what I say out the window. I would rather you hang on to a perhaps bit of a false idea in your mind if that's what makes you study. So, and I'm going to try and keep this short. This goes all over the place. I'm going to try and keep the Friday's Foos to like 30 minutes. So first of all, let's take the traditional flowery story, and let me just put it out there and go with it. A nun in the Southern Temple, a Shaolin nun by the name of Ning Mui, is learned in eternal spring white crane, most likely. Probably learned it from her father. And she has left, the Shaolin Temple has been, the king has attacked it and burned it down, and she and the 5 elders have fled, and she is entering into town, and a brute is beating up a young lady, and so the nun steps in and saves the young lady. And the young lady wants to know what techniques she used, and the nun agrees to teach her. The young lady's name is Yim Wing Chun, and so the nun teaches Yim her martial art. And Yim asks, where did this come from? And Ning Mui explains that she got a lot of the ideas by watching a stork or crane battling a snake, and was fascinated by how the snake could block and strike at the same time, or use its foot to hold off or ward off the snake and strike with the beak at the same time. And so she incorporated those ideas into her training. Yim Wing Chun goes on to, she is discovered practicing secretly. She's practicing secretly, and her dad is a merchant. She's in the back of his shop at night practicing. And the story that I was told was Leon Bick is fascinated with Yim Wing Chun and is watching her. And one night it's raining while he's sneaking peeks, watching her train, trying to learn her stuff. And the rain causes him to sneeze, and he gets discovered. They fall in love. They get married. She shows him everything that she knows. he goes on to train other people, and it descends from there to us. This is the flowery story. This is the story that people attach themselves to. For many years, since my Sifu told me that story, I hung on to that story. But there was something in it that in the back of my mind just said, nah, this is not right. So for several years, I did a lot of deep research. And for a while, I had a personal blog, and I posted a lot of the stuff that I found on the blog. And I will distill. I cannot read these articles to you. They're much too long. I will distill them down to some degree. I will post these articles. I took my blog down because web space was just getting too expensive. But now, since YouTube allows a community space where you can actually just post text, I will repost these articles, certainly the Wing Chun articles, of which there are a lot, so that you guys can read them at your leisure. But I'm going to distill them down to some degree. The first problem that I had was the idea that anyone could lay claim to the creation of any art. Period, end of story. That is, okay, so Bruce Lee creates Jeet Kune Do. 70 to 80% of Jeet Kune Do is Wing Chun. He didn't create that. And then there's boxing. Well, he didn't create that. And then there's fencing. Well, he didn't create that. There's nothing that he actually created. He codified, he organized. The original name of Jeet Kune Do was Li Jun Fan Gung Fu, which simply means Bruce Lee's mastery. Bruce Lee's way. Which is kind of, in my mind, an actually much more honest thing to say. And Andre can attest, I say this all the time. This is what I do. It's not necessarily a way that everybody should do it. Although I try to teach Wing Chun in a manner where everybody can find their own way, but the goal is to develop your own way. My way is not a style. It's my style, but it's not a style that anybody else can learn. Bruce Lee's was not a style that anybody else could learn. So my first concern was, how could anybody claim creation of Wing Chun? And then I also found it odd that one of the most popular things about Wing Chun is the Lin Wei Choi, the straight blast, chain punching. Created by a woman? Women have much stronger, they're much more adept with their legs than with their arms. It's just the way men are built upper body strength, women are built hip and lower body strength. I would think there'd be more kicking involved if it was created by a woman. But more importantly, back to my original point, I don't think anybody can lay claim to creating it. Anything in a martial art. You then have to say who created the punch, who created the satsao or the chop, who created the bite, who created the kick, who created the throw. All of those things happened in proto-humans. And we acquired them as just being animals. So no person can lay claim. I had one individual say when I was relating this that they felt I was misogynist because I was saying women couldn't create an art. I'm saying no one can create an art. They can codify one. They can code one. They can say, this is my way. I firmly believe that women are every bit as involved as men. But it is interesting that one of the primary things Wing Chun is known for is a thing that men would be better at doing just by their physique, the chain punch. And not known for kicking which would be something that most women would be more naturally adept at. I think it takes both. I think, like raising a child, Wing Chun was created by a village. So, first question is, where did the Yim Wing Chun come from? Where did the flowery story come from? And I'm going to try and get better at doing all this computing stuff. I'm going to put up an image and see if I can transfer that image so that you guys can see it. Let's see. Whoops. Nope. Don't lock that. Okay. Alright. I believe you guys can see this image. And I believe... Oops. Forget that. I believe you can see my pointer. This is a copy of the handwritten version of one page of the Yim Wing Chun story. This handwritten version comes from Ip Man himself. Ip Man was trying to create the VTAA, the Ving Song Tong Fellowship. Oh, no, the VTTF, the Ving Sun Tong Fellowship. And to do that, he felt Wing Chun needed to be explained, that its origin story needed to be explained. I'm going to lose that image. I'm going to come back to me. Beep. Boop. Whoop. Hello, I'm back. I found that on a website is called Kung Fu Tea, I believe. Let me look up my notes on that to be absolutely sure. I think it's here. Whoop. Nope. Looking, scrolling through pages and pages and pages, volumes of notes. Nope, wrong set of notes. Let me look at another set of notes. Ah, here it is. Yeah, it's an article. Actually, now it's on ChineseMartialStudies.com. It's an article called "Did Ip Man Invent the Story of Yim Wing Chun?" The story... First of all, we've got a couple of problems that we have to hurdle. In the 1850s, we have the Boxers' Revolution in China. In the Boxers' Revolution, that was basically all the martial arts schools revolting. They just didn't like the way things were going. And so the Chinese government cracked down, and it basically shut down most martial arts schools, and it eradicated a lot of records. We've got to admit that there's a lot of control, governmental control in China, so a lot of records are kind of shaky, especially about martial arts anytime after, well, for any time before the Boxer Revolution. We're at a point after. We hit a brick wall at the Boxers' Revolution. That documentation becomes scarce prior to. In fact, the only martial arts school to truly survive the Boxers' Revolution was Jingwu, which is the martial arts school that Bruce Lee supposedly was in during the movie The Big Boss, I think it was. I think it's The Big Boss, where his Sifu is killed by the invading Japanese karate school, and he goes over and he beats up all the karate guys. There is a big question if that movie was not produced by China's government as populist propaganda in backlash to the two Sino-Japanese wars. The government recognized that there was a cultural value in having something that the Chinese could identify as theirs. And martial arts turned out to be one of them. And so the Jing Wu was allowed to continue, and it actually was then molded and renamed and is now known as Wushu. And Wushu is literally, in the name, Wu is guard, right? It's a non-fighting, it's a flowery, showy martial art. It is not intended to actually be used. Not that you couldn't use it, but it's not done that way. So any emergence of a martial art after that comes from people's memory. And any emergence of story comes from people's memory. And as we all know, every lawyer in the world will tell you people make horrible witnesses because memories change. Memories fluctuate. Depends on the ego or the situation you're in, your memory will change, especially of an orally told story. Well, Yip Man wanted to popularize Wing Chun. He wanted to create the Ving Sun Tong Fellowship. He wanted to make Wing Chun look cool. He wanted to give it a history. So the first thing is, where did Ning Mui come from? And if I do this right, I'm going to reveal this. Boop. Whoop. Long before, well, Yip Man was born in 1892, something like that. I've got it written down somewhere. In his youth, there was a very popular story. As you see here, the Xing Chao Ding Shen Wanyan Ching, or the long name is The Sacred Dynasty Tripod Flourishes Verdant for 10,000 years. This is a story of Chinese heroes. The nun Ning Mui appears in this story. She appears as a Shaolin nun, northern Shaolin. She appears, strangely enough, as a go-between or a connection to the king. She's an insider. She's a double agent. She's in the temple to tell the king about the plans of those darn rogue monks that are giving the dynasty problems. In this particular story, and typically Westerners will call this story everlasting. They shorten all that. The sacred dynasty's tripod shall flourish verdant for 10,000 years. They shorten it to everlasting. That was such a popular story, it was rewritten and rewritten in pulp fictions and paperback novels. One of them was very popular. He retells the story. Zhang Daidai's 1930 story, Young Heroes from Shaolin. And in that, Ning Mui is a survivor of the attack on the monastery. And she escapes with the 5 elders. And so that's where Ning Mui comes from. Now, Yip Man in his story turns Ning Mui from a counter agent to the classic martial art hero good guy, somebody who's opposed to a oppressive government, helps the needy, does all the good things. Your traditional hero. So she goes from counter agent or double agent to traditional good guy. Record searches for Ning Mui as a nun bump into these stories. They have a hard time finding any reality. There are some who suggest... Oh, hey, Razone, hey. There are some who suggest that she might be a pseudonym for the White Crane Taoist, who once tried to, is a noted historical figure, and noted for attempting to kill the emperor, or to assassinate the emperor. The problem, though, is that White Crane Taoist is about 100 years too early. You can't get the linkages to modern day unless she bumps into Yim Wing Chun when she's like 120 years old. So that doesn't fly. So that presents one problem. We can't find proof of Neng Mui as a nun. Another problem that we run into is Yim Wing Chun. There are no records of a Yim Wing Chun, except in Ip Man's handwritten story. By the way, quick little side note, he was unsuccessful in creating the Ving Sun Tong Fellowship, but he did eventually, what was eventually created like in the 1950s, was the VTAA, the Ving Sun Athletic Association. So I mean, he was sort of successful with it. So Yim Wing Chun is a fictional character that he made up. But not all of the story that he made up is fictional. There is some evidence about Leon Bick, which would have been Yim Wing Chun's husband. And from there, you can kind of start to build a realistic lineage, which would be your history. And I'm going to take this down. I'm sure you guys have seen that enough. Whoops. Turn that off. There we go. Pop. Let me show you a lineage of sorts that I spent a long time trying to verify, and I wonder if I can get rid of those images. There they go. And I want to display this, and I'm going to pass this over. This fellow right here at the top of the tree is Wang Wabo. He was a big wig actor on the red boats between the 1830s and up to 1855. The red boats kind of got in trouble to some degree, involved in the Boxers' Revolution. He was known for his portrayal of General Chun. He would have been the Bruce Lee of his day. If his red boat, he was trying to remember the name now, I think it's Purple Flower or whatever. If his red boat came to your hometown along the river, you did everything you could to go see him because you wanted to see him play General Chun. His fight scenes were astounding. He had a partner, Liang Yi Tai, who was a polar on one of the red boats. Liang Yi Tai was, and there's a name, let me see if I can find this. Oops, I'm going to reveal some of my notes, folks, but that's okay. You're allowed to see my notes. I don't, maybe it's in this. I can't remember the term. And rather than subject you to me scrolling through this over and over again, I'll avoid it. Liang Yi Tai did what was popular at the time. He tended to play female characters, whereas Wang Wabo tended to play starring roles, specifically General Chun. They trained together. They trained together in what we would probably call Wing Chun. because almost every, but not all, families include this gentleman in their tree. Not all family. Leon Bick would have trained him, so Leon Bick would have been above him. But he's not. It's not pictured because he's not in all families. Wang Wabo is in all families. Wang Wabo trained a fellow Liang Duk Wing, or Mr. Zhang from Fushan, who is the son of a chemist. He was called Mr. Zhang from Fushan, not so much for his Wing Chun, but because he was noted for giving. That's this guy right here. He was known for helping out poor folk and giving them drugs when they needed it, or trading for a chicken or something like that, right? But he was a student, not the only, but one of many students of Wang Wabo and Liang Yitai. Liang Yitai is not pictured. I don't have a picture of him. Liang Yitai supposedly is noted for introducing or modifying the long pole, a kung fu form, dragon pole form, into utilizing Wing Chun principles. Liang Yitai also taught two versions of Wing Chun. In Fushan, he taught traditional forms, and he and Wang Wabo are noted for, it is assumed, that they took a longer kung fu form and broke it up into the three standing forms and even some of the Mukyang Zhang form that we know today. So they taught Mr. Zhang from Fushan. Mr. Zhang from Fushan, if you look him up, you're going to find out there'll be some boast, braggadocio knowledge that he supposedly fought 300 fights with 300 wins, no losses. I think that's probably spin, but I think it's good to say, okay, he had a lot of fights and a lot of wins. He taught traditional Wing Chun while he was in Fushan, but then he moved to Golo when he retired at a later age, and he began to teach what is called Sansik, which is still Wing Chun. It's just the distilled down, more practical, less flourished Wing Chun. What he would have used and found useful in the ring, and strip away some of the flourish and stuff. He taught this fellow Chun Hua Shun, born 1836, died 1909, and Chun Yin Men. These are two pictures of Chun Hua Shun. They in turn taught Yip Man. But there was also this kind of flip-floppy thing. For a while, Yip Man learned under Chun Yin Men, but then for a while, Chun Yin Men studied under Yip Man. Under Yip Man, you have, and the reason people talk so much about Yip Man is we're getting into modern times. There are viable records, and he has a long list of about 30 notable Wing Chun students, among which are Bruce Lee and William Chung and Moya, and just a whole slew of them. Some of which were students that he taught while he lived on the mainland. Some of which were students that he taught after the Sino-Japanese Wars, and he moved to Hong Kong, and they are not taught the same. He changes things. Things change. One of his students, or I shouldn't say one of his students, one of his peers is a fellow by the name of Jui Wan, pictured here. Jui Wan goes on to teach Sifu Francis Fong, this fellow right here, near the bottom. Oh, let's see. I don't know if you can even see that. Let me minimize this and maybe scroll this up and pull this down a little if I can. Ooh, it won't let me do that. But right here, This is Jui Wan down here, and this is, and I know these pictures are so small. This is Sifu Francis Fong, and that's me. Okay, so in terms of one consideration of history is lineage. One consideration of history is lineage. That's my lineage. Okay, it would be that line down to Sifu Francis Fong and me. I started studying under actually JKD under Sifu Mark Phillips here in Columbia. He introduced me to Sifu Francis Fong and Wing Chun, and literally the day I met Sifu Fong, I said, okay, that's what I really want to know. I mean, I went on to study a lot of JKD under Sifu Mills and also under Guru Dhananasanto, who was Sifu Mills' instructor. But Wing Chun was where I went. Under Sifu Francis Fong. So Jui Wan, Sifu Fong's instructor, was a peer and a collaborator with Ip Man. So you get, there's the gist of a lineage and the gist of a history, that the story of the woman creating a martial art is a bit bogus. But it still leaves you with the, well, then what is Wing Chun and where did it come from? There are a couple of notable figures, and I'm already at the little over the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to kind of wind up or open up to questions, and then kind of wind things up. There is a notable individual in White Crane, a female, who studied or actually taught White Crane in Wang Chun County. Not Wing, W-I-N-G, as Westerners would spell it, but W-E-N-G as Westerners would spell it. But boy, a Westerner, if they heard Wang Chun County, they'd think Wing Chun, okay, or Wang County. She was supposedly a master of the Wing Chun Chun, the Wing Chun fist, the vertical fist. So that may be where Wing Chun comes from. There are notable individuals who studied, she actually supposedly worked with a snake boxer, Kung Fu internal snake boxing. So you look at the Fuxao, you look at the Bilji, oh, that's snake, or can be. Bang Sao, that can certainly be. White Crane. It's interesting to note that not just myself, but also even Sifu Fong, in his logo, and in many Wing Chun logos, include a 5-leafed flower. The lotus. White lotus. It's also interesting to note, okay, going back to the Yen Wing Chun story, a stork battling a snake. Well, Tai Chi Quan, the story is a stork battling a fox. In some arts, the stork battles Ning Mui herself. Many, many arts use the stork and somebody else, something else, some other animal or person, as combatants from which the style derives. A couple of more points that people are not going to like. Almost all martial arts stories, especially Kung Fu related stories, herald their beginning to the monks in the southern temple. No one has been able to find the broken ground where the southern temple was. That is to say, it is highly likely that the Southern Temple is a myth itself. No one can point to where it was. And, I mean, archaeologists are archaeologists, right? I mean, they can find the bones of a T-Rex, but they can't find a cornerstone for a building in the Southern Temple. Give me a break. If the Southern Temple was anything, it might have been a gathering of a handful of monks in some guy's backyard. The Northern Temple, the argument was that it was under attack by the king, but historical records suggest that it was in disrepair, and yes, some buildings were burned down because they were going to fall down, and it was the easiest way to get them down and rebuild them. And if you go to China now, you can pay a fee. The Northern Temple is their Disneyland. And the more you pay, the higher up the mountain, the higher into the temple you get to go. You can go today and you can train with the monks if you're willing to pay a fee. It's a show. Okay? So the idea that the Southern Temple was burned down or attacked by the Qing dynasty and 5 monks fled and went on to create Hung Gar and Wing Chun and Pak Mei and no, that's I don't hold with that. Now, some people who are going to watch this later are going to do their keyboard warrior thing and go, "You're all wrong. It was always a woman, and yes, the Southern Temple." I've researched this for years. For years. I'm not saying I'm right 100%, but I am saying for some things there is just no proof. So it's something else. So anyway, I'm going to open it up for questions or get ready to close. I hope that answered your first question. Most of the first question that you had. You had 7 questions under history. Some of them dealt specifically with Bruce Lee, and I mentioned Bruce Lee to some degree. Bruce Lee and how did he figure in spreading the art? The only thing that he figured in spreading the art is he was a movie star. He was a movie star before he starting martial arts. I mean, seriously, he was a movie star as a little bitty baby, as a kid. He wanted to be an action hero. And like any good modern action hero, what do? You bulk up and you puff up and you learn to fight and you learn to do fancy things, and that's what he did, and that's why he studied martial arts for the most part, and that spread Wing Chun because people just wanted to know I like that guy, what is he doing? Quite frankly. So I think that answered most of the 7 questions that you had, Andre. If you can think of one that pertains specifically to histories and lineages, speak now or wait until I see you tomorrow in class. Anybody else got a question? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, there you have it. Friday's Foo, Histories and Lineages. I hope, like I said, I'm trying to keep this to 30 minutes. I actually went into the 45-minute zone because people got other things to do on Friday night. You go out and have a great Friday night, everyone, and keep on training.